I'd like you to imagine the last time you had a really good meal. There's a huge chance, my friend, that someone followed a recipe and used the correct ingredients to make that meal. Well, in this nugget, what I'd love to do is talk with you about the ingredients that go into an environment that is referred to as vSphere. Let's begin. I'd like you to go back with me in the time machine. Let's go back 20 years. Let's imagine that you and I are at work and our boss says, hey, great news. We're going to deploy a server to be providing services, for example, on our local network or possibly the internet. So we're all excited about this new server. So we go through the process of doing the paperwork for the purchase order. And let's think about that new server. When it comes in, we open the box, we pull it out, and perhaps the operating system is already loaded on it. Maybe it's a Linux server or a Windows server. In any case, after we power it up, we'd also have to make sure we either add our application or configure an application such as a web server service on that box. If that's the application we're going to be using to provide services, then we would physically place it somewhere in our data center, and away we go. Now, the process of the ordering and the configuration and the deployment, that whole process from beginning to end may take days or weeks depending on our environment that we're working in. And in the event that our boss comes back to us and says, hey, great job on that first server, by the way, we need to go ahead and grow our services. We need 5 more physical machines, 5 more servers for our customers and internal clients to use. And the challenge with that is that it would again take a long period of time in the old days to get the hardware, get the operating systems all configured the way we need to, install or tweak the applications, and get our content on those servers so they can be deployed and be useful in our network. And there's also another challenge, and that's this. Those 6 servers, if that's how many we deployed, it's also very, very likely that those servers are underutilized. Maybe our web server is at 5 to 10%, depending on the time of day. And our email server, maybe it's at 2 to 10% utilization. And one of the big bummers that is a reality in the old days is that for each of these, let's say we had 6 physical servers, on each of those 6 physical servers, they'll have CPU resources on the motherboard, they've got random access memory, they've got network interface cards, and they have some type of disk storage. So the bummer is we had to pay for each of those 6 physical servers with all the resources that currently are being underutilized. One of our solutions to these problems of taking lots of time to deploy a server as well as underutilization, one of the solutions to address that is virtualization. And to do that, we are going to use some type of a hypervisor. So we're going to still have a physical computing resource. For example, a physical box with a CPU and memory and network interface cards and storage. But instead of running a single operating system on that box, we instead run a hypervisor. And the hypervisor's job is to create an environment where we can build virtual machines and virtual servers in that space. So for example, on this one physical server, we'll call this host number 1, we could run a bare metal hypervisor. And I have a question for you. What is the bare metal hypervisor that's made by VMware? What is the name of it that we talked about in our previous nugget? And if you're saying, Keith, it's ESXi. That's the name of the bare metal hypervisor from VMware that we can run on a physical resource to provide an environment where we can do virtual machines. You would be absolutely correct. So on this one physical host, host number 1, we can install ESXi as the hypervisor. And then in this environment, I've got 3 virtual machines that are shown here. So maybe this is VM1, VM2, and VM3. So maybe VM1 is our web server, VM2 is our email server, and VM3 is our DNS server. Or these could be 3 web servers with the same exact content. and we have some kind of a load balancer, like an F5 or a NetScaler load balancer. And that load balancer could then take requests that are coming in from the internet and then spin it off to, for example, the least busy server at that given moment. And when I refer to server, I'm referring to VM1 as a server, or VM2 as a server, or VM3 as a server, based on which one of those virtual machines is currently least busy. So there's a couple of huge benefits of creating our servers in a virtualized environment compared to a one machine, one OS model. One of those benefits is that deploying these virtual machines is extremely fast. For example, a new Windows server running as a virtual machine, we can roll that out in literally minutes, as opposed to hours or days or weeks if we had to physically get the hardware to begin with and then configure it and then deploy it. Because we're defining this virtual machine in software, it's referred to as Software Defined Data Center, or SDDC. And as a result of being defined in software on this hypervisor, it makes them very quick and easy to roll out. Another benefit of this virtualization is that you and I are taking more advantage of our resources that we paid for. For example, a VM1, if this is a Microsoft server and it's currently using 10% of the resources, instead of wasting the other 90%, this hypervisor, which is in control of these resources, can use those resources, such as CPU and RAM, for other virtual machines that are running on that same hypervisor. So for example, if VM2 is at 20% utilization and VM3 is at 15%, this ESXi host would then be at 45% utilization. 10 plus 20 is 30, plus 15 more is 45. So we're now using 45% of the resources on this ESXi host with a hypervisor running. And if we wanted to add more virtual machines, we could, because we have more resources that we can still deliver. So if we have additional virtual machines, maybe we decide, okay, let's add another virtual machine here. So we have, for example, VM4 and VM number 5 and VM number 6. And at the end of the day, we're going to get better utilization of the equipment, the CPU, the memory that we have paid for, as opposed to the old days when we'd have one physical machine. We'd have the traditional operating system, for example, Windows Server software, and an application such as web services, where in that case, if we were at 15% utilization, the rest of the physical computing resources would simply be wasted. Because in the one machine, one operating system, old school scenario, the CPU and the RAM on this one physical computer can't be shared with some other server that's on a different physical computer. So one of our main components in a vSphere environment is going to be the ESXi hosts. And in our topology here in our lab environment, we're going to have ESXi-1 and ESXi-2. These represent two different machines that are each running VMware's bare metal hypervisor called ESXi. And one of the things I would love to do as you and I continue in this course together is when we think about an ESXi, I would like you to think of it as a host. Meaning it's the host environment, the hypervisor environment, that is acting as the host to host other guest operating systems. For example, a virtual machine that's running Windows or a virtual machine that's running Linux. And what I would like to avoid doing is I would like to avoid using the word server when we're talking about an ESXi host. And here's the reason. There are so many elements that we could refer to as a server, including an ESXi host. We could say, hey, this is a ESXi server because it's a hypervisor environment that's providing this environment for other virtual machines. But I'd like to not use the word server when we're talking about the ESXi host. And by avoiding the use of the word server when referring to the ESXi hosts, it's just going to add additional clarity that we're not talking about some virtual machine that's running a server operating system, such as Windows Server or a Linux server as part of a VM. Another key ingredient that we're going to have in our vSphere environment is storage. Now let's imagine this virtual machine right here. And let's imagine that this virtual machine, we'll call it VM number 1, is running a Windows Server operating system. And I've got a question for you regarding this virtual machine. True or false? A Windows Server operating system is going to need some disk space. True or false? And the answer is absolutely true. And the entity that is providing that storage service to this virtual machine is going to be our ESXi host. So somewhere, this ESXi host needs to have access to storage to support the virtual machine. And the storage could come from a few places, including we could have local hard disks that are attached to each of our ESXi hosts. And then the ESXi host could do reads and writes from that local storage to support that virtual machine. Another option is we could use network-based storage. And then they could use storage that is network attached. For example, we could use technologies like iSCSI or NFS, which we'll talk about both of those in greater detail in another nugget. So storage is another key ingredient in the vSphere architecture. Another challenge that we're going to face in a virtualized environment is managing multiple ESXi hosts. For example, if you and I have one ESXi host, we're running all of our virtual machines on this guy, we can use pretty simple management tools to configure, create the virtual machines, and manage this device. However, in larger networks, larger data centers, we're going to have multiple ESXi hosts. And it would be fantastic if there was some kind of an enterprise management tool that we could use to collectively manage and work with multiple ESXi hosts. And the great news is there is a management solution for managing larger environments that are larger, for example, than just one. And it's called vCenter. Specifically, it's called vCenter Server. And in our topology, I've got an icon representing a vCenter Server appliance. So if you ever see VCSA, that's an acronym for vCenter Server Appliance. And here's the basic concept behind it. Instead of you and I sitting at our management PC and connecting over to our ESXi host number 1 and connecting separately over to our ESXi host number 2 to create virtual machines or to check on the health and welfare of our ESXi host, instead of doing that, what you and I would do is we would connect to the vCenter Server device. In this example, it's the vCenter Server appliance. So it's like one-stop shopping, like a single pane of glass. And what we do is inside of vCenter Server, we can go ahead and then take a look at the details regarding ESXi1 and ESXi2. We can tweak, we can tune, we can make new virtual machines. So in the big picture, we have the vCenter Server acting as a middleman. We interface with the vCenter Server, and then the vCenter Server is actually issuing the commands or pushing the commands over to the ESXi hosts. And regarding the vCenter Server, it can either be running on top of a Windows server, or we can do it as a pre-built appliance that we use from VMware that is Linux-based. And we'll take a look at the pros and cons of using the Windows solution versus the Linux-based appliance in our nugget on vCenter. Another challenge that comes up is authentication. For example, if this virtual machine here that we're running on this ESXi host called ESXi1, if this is a private internal server for our company, it's very likely that we're going to have authentication and have that device be part of Active Directory. So in most vSphere environments, we're also going to have Active Directory, Microsoft's Active Directory, as a core component for the authentication of devices on that network. And we can use Active Directory not only for authentication of our virtual machines, we can also tie into Active Directory for the authentication of administrators. So if you and I are managing our vSphere environment and we connect to the vCenter Server appliance, we can have the vCenter Server appliance leveraging Active Directory to identify whether or not we are an authenticated individual. So in Active Directory, if there's a group called, for example, VM admin, we could then use group membership inside of Active Directory to control administration rights inside of our VMware environment. Another huge piece that we're going to have in our vSphere environment is networking. For example, how do we get an ESXi host to go ahead and use shared network storage? And the answer is we are going to use some type of a network. How do we get the vCenter server appliance to communicate with Active Directory? And the answer is we're going to go ahead and use network connectivity to pull that off. How does the vCenter server appliance communicate with ESXi host number 1 and ESXi host number 2? And the answer is, again, network connectivity. So some of the network connectivity can be virtualized inside of the ESXi hosts, and other network connectivity is going to be in the physical world. So we'd have, for example, switches and VLANs set up, and then we would physically connect the ESXi hosts to those networks. And I still remember back when I was first learning about putting all the components together and having it being referred to as vSphere, I thought to myself, okay, somebody point to vSphere. And the reality is, vSphere is the coordinated effort of these different products and technologies. So if our friend walked up to you and I and said, hey, we're using vSphere in our environment, what we could do in our own minds is say, okay, great. What that means is they've got one or more vCenter servers that are currently in their environment, and they have at least one ESXi host. In this nugget, we've taken a look at some of the ingredients that go into the environment called vSphere. It's quiz time, it's quiz time, it's quiz time! All right, as an assessment for you and I for what we've just covered in this nugget, let's take a look at these 3 questions. Number 1, what are the 2 main VMware components in vSphere? They will always be there for any environment that says, hey, we're using vSphere. What are the 2 main components? Question number 2, vSphere is centrally managed by what component? And by the way, the answer to that one is going to be one of the 2 main components in a vSphere environment. And number 3, what are 2 options that an ESXi host could use for VM storage? And if you're not quite sure on the answers to any of those pieces, please review those sections in this nugget before you continue. I am glad you joined me for this nugget. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.